TikTok is finally going to get banned. Now, they still have a year, so let's kind of break down what it is really saying.
Yes.
They've got a year to either sell, disband, or just be gone, right? Like,
yes. Well, essentially what the bill does is it prevents the app stores from distributing TikTok, right?
Yeah.
And what that means is that because that's the only way to get, apps on a phone, that TikTok is effectively banned, or must be sold to like a U.S. company that maintain control.
And what does that mean? Number one, for people that consume TikTok, it means that you could probably use TikTok, but there won't be any updates.
Exactly.
It'll get glitchy and janky, and ultimately it would affect your user experience. On the creator side, it means that less traffic over time. Also,
fewer updates for your creation.
Exactly. So it's not going to be as competitive to like maybe competitors that have their updates and new functions. And and then I guess today we're going to talk about, is it a good or bad thing? What's going to happen? And my advice actually for TikTok creators. I don't know, where should we even start?
I mean, I think I would start from the effects, or kind of the current state of things, right? So we know the situation, right? What does that mean that we think might happen next because this has gone down? Because there's sort of like a branching set of pathways that could happen, both for the app, but then also in terms of the effect for creators and viewers.
So Meet Kevin actually talked about this on an interview he did with Yahoo News, which I thought was interesting because it was like breaking news in the middle of his interview about the Federal Reserve. They say, hey, because you and your colleagues might be affected by this, what do you think about the TikTok ban?
And I would have loved to ask a question about the Cybertruck. I actually need to pivot here because of some breaking news that came out during this hour from the Biden administration that may influence you or many of your colleagues as well in the kind of influencer and content creator category also, where there's going to be more of the perhaps onus on a potential buyer to come forward and buy TikTok, or else it will not be allowed to exist here in the U.S. and a U.S. owner specifically, I should mention as well. What do you think that does for a lot of the content creators like yourselves, and where do you shift to if not on TikTok?
I would be surprised if somebody didn't come around to buy it, because quite frankly, if TikTok was going to get 100% shut down, you could take the value of TikTok in America and just set it to 0. So anything above 0 is going to be a win for ByteDance. As a creator, it's definitely an uncertain time, because there's always that chance that it's completely gone and removed from the App Store. And even just a period of time, this is the biggest risk. Even if it just disappears for a few months, as soon as people get the routine of using that kind of platform out of their habit of opening their phone every time they go to the bathroom or they're in the kitchen to get a coffee or whatever, as soon as that routine turns into, okay, now they're on YouTube Shorts or they're on Instagram or something else, that definitely hurts creators on TikTok. So the worst case scenario, I don't think, is that they're gone forever. It's just that if they're gone for a window, that unwinds people's habits, and that's the worst thing that could happen.
That window of time between the question about TikTok and where TikTok finally lands.
The uncertainty, that's all.
The uncertainty. And so that uncertainty actually can be right now till a year out, or it could be like when it gets sold and then finally like lands on what it's going to be. And he said it's on the user side where the risk is to the creator.
Totally.
Think about somebody that's like, oh man, this ain't working anymore.
Totally.
Can't update it. Or I don't think my creator's on here anymore, and they start using other apps.
Exactly.
So the habit, he even said like the habit of someone picking up their phone every few minutes, or they go to the bathroom and look like TikTok, or they're running an errand, they put it, well, I guess when you're running errands you wouldn't use TikTok. But anyway, you get what I'm saying.
Yes.
They're gonna start choosing other apps.
Exactly.
And during that window of time, they might start getting attached or addicted to those apps, and they kind of put TikTok in their past. So it's like any other platform, any other social media app that kind of went through the same thing, and it's just a distant memory. He says that is the number one thing. And so I guess that is the potential downside for TikTok creators. Now, full transparency. One, I don't use TikTok. Two, I don't put up content there. Though I might, I don't know. But with this ban, probably not. And 3,
Yeah.
I am super biased to YouTube, but the thing about TikTok that's really big is short form and the success of short form creators and how it influenced Instagram and now YouTube with YouTube Shorts. So I think it had an important role, but my quick take is the demise of TikTok isn't the demise of short form creators.
Not at
it just
all.
means there's going to be a huge, what do you call it, like a migration?
Redistribution,
Exactly.
migration. Yeah, I think that those are all good ways of putting it. Now, I will say, in the meantime, I mean, a lot of people have heard about it, right? Because it's something that they use every day. But the reality is, I think that there's probably more momentum for TikTok than people are necessarily giving it credit for. The problem starts to happen when that changes, right? If iOS 18 comes out and it's not compatible for some reason, that's an issue for creators. That's an issue for viewers, right? If there is, if TikTok says, well, we can't update it, so we need to essentially, they have no incentive to make it a thriving platform anymore, right? That is when they could just say, okay, well, yeah, we're not even gonna, serve traffic for whatever reason, right? So I definitely agree with the point that it is, this period right now, the uncertainty period is the most dangerous part. But there is one more thing in relation to that, which is that if it does get sold, that's still not a guarantee, right? TikTok, I think that it's underrated to think about who the company is that owns the platform, right? Not all companies are created equal. Not all companies understand creators
Who's
the
the
same way.
leadership, right?
And exactly, who the leadership is.
Who's making the decisions?
That's exactly it. So in the long term, even beyond a sale, right? If it goes to a company that doesn't get creators or doesn't get the audience, well then that could be just as fatal as the app dying itself.
They
right?
could ruin it.
They could ruin it.
Just like they say marketers ruin everything. Well, guess what? Somebody that it wasn't their main business model or it wasn't their expertise, like they talk about Oracle taking it over
Yes.
because they're the ones that have the servers.
Exactly.
Well, guess what? They're not in the business of, one, social media,
Yep.
and two, like creating like a community for creators to be able to upload content.
Completely agree.
And literally have no experience in it, so they could just ruin it without even trying.
Well,
right?
like a good example of this is Google when they tried Google Plus, right? Now, arguably they have a very thriving like social platform on YouTube, right? But the point is that it's not in every company's DNA to run every type of service.
And
that's where I'll
the
leave it.
companies that could buy it, that do have experience, it would maybe be deemed a monopoly at that point.
That's
so
true.
they would, I don't think like Meta or Google would be able to. Maybe a smaller company like a Snapchat could,
Yeah.
but then that's like direct competitor. So guess what they would ultimately do? They would buy it and just make it into Snapchat.
No, they would.
Right? Just like with, so
Because they
actually-
already have vested interest in the company, right? And so they have a whole pathway. And yes, a big change like that would change the company. But the reality is, it's the same people with the same ideas, and so you're probably going to end up with the same end
We
result.
just named probably 4 to 8 issues that TikTok's gonna have no matter what right now.
Yes.
Among the issues they already have right now, which is the big question of like what happens now, what if?
Will it even exist?
that unknown is already bad
Yes.
for TikTok creators.
Totally.
And for the user right now, they're not noticing anything different. But right when they start feeling it, so that might be a year out, right when they start seeing all these stories about TikTok being banned, eventually, I think on the user side, it'll affect it, and that's when you're
Yes.
going to see the biggest danger. So my ultimate thought on if this is good or bad for creators, I actually think it's good for TikTok creators, and I'll tell you why.
Interesting.
Number one, there's not going to be a question. If it gets banned, you should get out of there. You have to go to another platform, and guess what? Then you don't have to live in a questionable world. Now, yes, you probably will lose your audience.
Yes.
That's on TikTok.
Which is rough. Yeah.
Okay, but the second reason why I think it's good has a lot to do with that kind of issue. Almost
which
every
issue?
TikToker wants to become a YouTube content creator.
Yeah, that's
Right?
true.
Or
Yeah.
if they don't want to be a YouTuber or create content for YouTube, they definitely have said they're not happy with TikTok.
Yeah.
I've never met somebody that was 100% satisfied, 100% happy with TikTok ever. Like,
which is kind of incredible when you think about it.
For how much success people have had on it,
Yes.
and how many views and the influence they built, yeah, it is mind-blowing when I hear that really negative sentiment.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm biased and inviting it out.
Oh,
I'm
no.
just having regular discussion like, oh my God, I hope,
And it just
Benji,
pops up,
secretly,
yeah.
I hope TikTok gets banned. Like,
That's amazing.
really? That's like your #1 platform. It's like, no, it's just such a nightmare, and I would rather just focus on the one thing. And so this is why I think ultimately it's good for TikTok creators. Now, is it gonna be easy? Definitely not.
No.
And two, I can say easily because I'm not a TikTok creator. I might be biased in saying like, oh, I don't want to get it banned. But when I think about even where TikTok is going, it's really just becoming a YouTube of sorts.
Oh, it totally is.
Longer form content.
Yep.
They now can do, I think, about 15 or 18-minute uploads. A lot of people are starting to experiment with horizontal, right?
Yep.
Widescreen content. And if you think about where is there a platform on earth where that's already been done for almost 20 years and at a high level, and you get paid for it in a very reasonable way? YouTube. So if you just, the writing's on the wall that they are going that way,
Yes.
like as a platform, TikTok specifically,
Yes.
and it will only continue to go that way. So why don't you just bite the bullet, understand inevitably TikTok for creators has not been the best thing, even though it's been a great opportunity. And remember, this podcast is so biased towards YouTube, but for good reason, because we hear from not only content creators in general, but especially TikTokers who want to have a YouTube presence. So, hey, if you're ever gonna make the commitment, make it now. Now, on that note, should you stop uploading TikTok? Heck no. You should definitely upload until the very last opportunity, because this is a cool thing. I still think this is the one thing about short form creator that gives you an edge more than any other time in social media influencer history. The fact that you can create a TikTok and upload it to 3 of the biggest platforms.
No, that's really true.
Reels, Shorts, and TikTok. Never before, because
That's so true.
we always said upload natively. Well, that format has been adopted by the 3 big ones, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. TikTok because it is their only format, and it works at a high level.
Yes.
Why not do it? But the point of this, discussion is what's going to happen with TikTok. Is it good for creators, and what you choose to do? I mean, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I just segmented into 2 things in my mind, right? There's a short-term effect and there's a long-term effect, right? For a creator, you know that in the short term that it's rocky ground, right? And you know that means that no matter what, in the short and long term, that you're gonna have to face a changing landscape, right? So that's just a given. So I think that this is kind of what you were saying, and you're right that maybe you shouldn't stop uploading to TikTok, but it also, any type of adversity is also an opportunity, right? So one thing that you can think about is whether or not short form is still the medium that you're aiming for, right? Maybe this is now an opportunity to say, well, it's time for me to go full in on long form content, right? Because this is now shaky ground. Because again, even if it's not banned entirely in the US, with a new set of leaders at the helm, it's uncertain what's gonna happen, right? And so, you could continue making short form and post to the big 3, right? Like you talked about. And I think that is wise in its own way. But if you've been thinking about making the jump, this would be a good time to reevaluate that, whether that makes sense for you and your content creation and your business and everything else.
Well, on that note, something I've heard from almost every TikToker, maybe it comes up because of who I am and they know I'm, wrote the book YouTube Secrets.
True.
All of them know in their gut, I need to be on YouTube and I need longer form content.
Yes.
None of them said, oh, I need to make longer form content on TikTok, even though they totally can.
Yes.
Because they just know when it comes to those longer view sessions, higher audience retention type of consumption is happening on YouTube because it's the new TV of the world. So I say that because this ain't something that we're just pulling out of our ass. This is actually something that TikTok creators think about. They brought up to us. We've talked to different people.
Yes.
And there's just too many questions around that platform and different reasons, right? Not just if it's gonna get banned, well, what about the revenue? And that hasn't been solid. 3, like they don't actually support creators. I think, that they could be supporting creators. And so this whole underlying kind of sentiment of, oh, I need to be on YouTube is not new. It's actually been across the board with everybody. And why not use this moment to just finally make the leap? Because ultimately, think about this. If TikTok gets banned, I think YouTube Shorts inherits most of that traffic.
I would say it gets split between Instagram and YouTube,
okay,
right?
cool.
Because a big set of TikTok creators are already posting to Reels, right? But I will say, just to your point about the revenue piece, right? Number one, having one app rather than 2 to focus on is a very useful thing because you only have such amount of time in the day. And the second thing is that short form inherently is flawed when it comes to monetization. There's no way that TikTok or YouTube or Instagram will solve the monetization problem because with a reel, you expect multiple reels for every ad that you see, right? With a YouTube video, you can have an ad for everything. And so it's a direct tie to what you can do. It's a more sustainable thing outright.
I love that we're about to debate because we rarely debate. We agree on so much, but this one, I would disagree.
Please.
I do believe YouTube will inherit most of the traffic.
I'm so curious.
If not ultimately be the one that inherits the massive majority to where like it doesn't matter what Instagram gets. And this is one reason why.
Why is that?
Because the youth, I believe, still like YouTube better than Instagram. Instagram's like the old person's platform. It's a way that people
true now?
People used to say that about Facebook. So, and I'm just old enough that I remember when people said, oh, Chris actually was one like, Benji, Facebook's dead. It's old. It's for old people. You got to sign up for Instagram. That's what he said.
I remember that.
Now,
very
in the last 5 to 6 years, people are saying the same thing about TikTok. And they're like, Instagram's old, right?
You know what this means? What? It means that I'm old.
Yes, you're getting older too. And so my point is this, YouTube's the oldest if you think about it from like a video standpoint, but the one thing about YouTube is, and this is gonna be a complete left field conversation.
Yeah.
Their biggest success is the one that most people don't even think about unless you're a parent, the YouTube Kids app.
Oh yeah.
It's the only app, if you think about it, social media-wise or just content-wise, that kids at a really young age are using. Now, it's protective, it's only kid-appropriate stuff, and even the whole thing can be controlled for parents for limited viewing. Even the ads are controlled. So the fact that kids were using it, a lot of them did do TikTok, but if there's no more TikTok, guess what? The natural progression from YouTube Kids app to YouTube is way easier because Instagram doesn't have any of that.
Well,
so they were indoctrinating people into it. So I always knew when they were doing this and my kids were first starting using YouTube, I was like, dude, they're literally creating YouTubers before they even know what that even means.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy, actually.
Yeah. So this is where YouTube is playing the long game.
Yeah.
Like we're talking the Japanese companies making 50 and 100-year goals kind of game, and no one would really understand it, especially if you don't have kids or you're not dealing with that generation.
Yeah, that is a good point.
And so Instagram is the old app, even though I use Instagram, and that's where I DM people or whatever. And YouTube is still the old app, but has this
kind of
department.
like groundswell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
well, tell me this though: is there Shorts on the YouTube Kids app? And this is my counterpoint, depending on your answer.
See, I don't know because I haven't used the Kids app myself. I only let my kids. I think that would be a good thing to look at. I know that short form content makes it onto the YouTube Kids app.
For sure.
If they make it like a long
regular
form
video,
upload. Yeah.
I will say, right, depending on the answer to this, if there is Shorts in there, I agree with you. If there is not, I'm still undecided, maybe I disagree with you.
Because, you still think Instagram will inherit more?
Well, because I think about this, right? Young kids probably are still watching short form in most households, right? I mean, you can debate whether or not that's like the right parenting move, right, necessarily, but the reality is that it is the format that's in vogue, right? So if it's not accessible for kids on the YouTube Kids app, they're gonna go to another platform and they will be trained to go to, in this case, Reels for the short form content and YouTube for the long form content.
I'm gonna one-up you.
Okay, here we go.
it's not going to be YouTube or Instagram. I believe if TikTok fully gets shut down, guess what? The next generation will find the new spot.
That's true.
And that to me,
they always do.
That to me is what is most important, because I say, hey, if you want to go fast and you want to be first on scene, which is so powerful for any niche of content creation, because then you grow the biggest audience the quickest. Wherever the new place is, that new generation, and it was Musical.ly for a while, and then Musical.ly got bought up by TikTok, so it became TikTok. I think that there's going to be a new cooler thing, a new whatever. I mean, this kind of gets into this discussion we had with Andrew about the difference in content creation, 360 videos or VR kind of videos.
Spatial,
So you know, that isn't to say like, you know, I'm right. I'm just saying the pattern in history for content and the younger generation is what's new is cool, not what's old and doing new things.
That's true.
It's truly what is novel and different, and that the old people aren't hanging out in. Because kids, this is one thing I know, not just be a dad of kids, but seen like 3 times already in my life, because I've been doing content since like 2005. You know, the simple answer that kids give me when I ask them, well, why do you like using it? It's usually like, oh, it's just like that's where everyone's at, right? That's where everyone's hanging out, everyone's
that's
uploading.
what kids do.
But then the second side, when you dig a lot more, it's like, oh yeah, the reason I'm not on the other platform is because my parents are there.
Kids always run away from the adults.
Parents just want to, kids just want to be free. They want to be independent. And I'd say that's it. I mean, I don't know, anything else on TikTok though? Because we're going way off the path now.
I guess there's 2 takeaways, and maybe we can round this out. You know, for me, when I think about what the future is, right, the one counter example of that is YouTube, right? And that's because YouTube knows what they're doing, And so I think about, you know, like what we talked about at the beginning with TikTok. It's a pretty strong case to make that if you're looking for stability in a time of uncertainty, you go to the platform that's been around for 20 years and has nailed it for 20 years, right? And that's long form content, regardless of what you do. The second piece is kind of what you were saying, right? Which is that I basically agree with you when you say, yeah, there's probably going to be something else, right? And regardless about whether that's TikTok or whatever the next thing is, well, the reality is it doesn't exist now. So you're probably watching this now and making a decision about what you want to do, and you have to make decisions based off of what we know and what you might think might happen next. But if we're thinking about the next platform, well, that's many years in the future. So
totally, and it won't be obvious.
No,
right? That's kind of the point. You never know. Number one takeaway for any TikTok creators, I would say, is keep creating content, but start uploading it, if you're definitely not, onto YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels. Test out both of them. Knowing that TikTok could be around, so it's not going to hurt you. It's going to just take a little bit extra time, maybe hire like a uploader for you that understands, you know, like the platform and whatnot. So secondly, I think the discussion is revolving around creators in general, but especially TikTokers wanting to do long form content. The way you get good at long form content is start creating long form content.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a different mindset. It's a different philosophy than your short form content. So you're gonna have to upload not just like longer versions of your TikToks. Literally just start thinking, what's something extra I can give to my audience, or what is the content I can create that there's a audience out there on YouTube that wants to watch it. And it could actually correlate with what you're already doing on TikTok, but it might not. I don't know, right? I don't know where you're at creatively. Point I'm trying to do is the second thing is start experimenting with long form content on YouTube. And this is why ultimately, forget my bias, if you had to pick one place, right? Where's the best ROI? I still think it's YouTube versus like Instagram.
Totally agree.
Now, if you're just gonna do short form content, kind of a different discussion. But right now, we're just talking about what's the most strategic, what's the one giving you most ROI. And the third thing is too, don't overthink the whole banning thing, right? Like it's been a discussion forever. And I think that the thing that is making you valuable isn't the fact that you're a TikToker, it's the fact that you can create content and connect with an audience that becomes a community, that becomes, you know, your raving fans. And if you just are good at that, even if like out of nowhere they created like some law and like, hey, TikTok, no more sale, completely banned, right? I know this isn't fun to hear, but if you had to start all over, I believe you could start all over on YouTube Shorts, on Instagram Reels, or whatever else you do, and you'll just be that much more successful, that much faster, because it's the skill of being able to create content that people want to watch that is most important, and all these other things is just like, it's like surface level issues for you, even though like for a TikToker where that's the only platform you use, it could totally devastate you. But the thing that made you valuable isn't the fact that you're on TikTok, is because you're creating content for TikTok.
Yeah, it's a good takeaway. The higher order good, as we've said in the past.
You're the one with all the smart sayings. I'm just saying what I feel, but yes, exactly.
Is be a creator first and foremost and let everything flow from that.
100% always.
I don't know how to use this thing, Benji.
Oh, it's because it's zoomed function. hit this right here. And then,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
there you go.
Sorry about
okay. No, it's okay.